Hi babes, welcome back to my channel. 今天的视频在开始之前，我要跟大家说几句话。这期的视频本来不是我录想要分享给大家的，只是我自己在跟 Zita West 做 therapy 的时候，我自己录下来给我自己看的。但是在考虑了很久之后，我非常勇敢的决定把它分享出来，因为这个里面有很多很私人、很隐私的信息。本来我是不愿意说出来的，但是我最后还是决定要说出来。这其中有几个非常重要的原因。第一个原因就是我在分享了我自己的整个 IVF 的经历之后，有无数个女孩发私信给我，跟我说她们在同样的经历着生育的煎熬，还有她们在进行辅助生育的治疗，还有她们经历了流产，不管是小月份的流产还是大月份的流产，她们都非常痛苦。但是这种痛苦大多数的时候只能是在心里默默的承受，只能在心里默默的消化。她们不知道能跟谁去讲，她们觉得自己也不可以跟别人去讲。其中一个女孩跟我说，她在做试管，可是她不愿意把这件事告诉别人，因为她家里的人告诉她不要把这件事儿分享给别人。还有很多的女孩跟我说，她大概在很早期的怀孕的期间就流产了，她心里非常的痛苦，但是她也不能跟朋友或者同事说，因为大家都觉得流产是一件非常不好的事情。基本上所有的女孩跟我讲，在我们今天的社会环境当中，生育的困难、辅助生育的治疗、流产这件事情基本上是比较禁忌的话题。不管是别人也好，还是当事人也好，这个话题基本上就好像 sex 一样，是不能被大家放到桌面上来讲的。那这样就造成了可能很多人都不能去理解。但是大家忽略的一点是，你知道这件事有多么的常见。我自己在生育这条道路上挣扎的时候，我才知道原来早期流产有一种叫空囊，甚至有很多的时候你是不知道的。那女孩子由于追求事业，追求自己的生活，可能普遍都把生育的年龄错后了。那么早生有早生的好处，晚生有晚生的好处。那么晚生其中一个最大的不好的地方，可能你会在生育的道路当中遇到困难的这个几率要比年轻的时候要大得多。给我写私信的那些女孩在告诉我，她们在经历这个过程的时候，感觉是有一座大山压在她身上，抬起头来是乌云密布的，但是她们在工作场合，在家庭还要强颜欢笑，不能告诉别人，也不能把这件事说出来。这就是决定我今天要把我做心理治疗的这个视频完整的分享给大家的一个重要原因。因为我觉得这个社会，这个世界是时候来谈一谈生育困难、辅助生育还有流产对女性身体、心灵和精神所造成的影响。因为越多的人能够开诚布公的说出来这件事情，而不是隐瞒，而不是欺骗，这件事情就越会被 normalize。 It's normal。 因为我们在谈流产的时候，我们在谈生育困难的时候， but a lot of women carry a certain degree of shame。 你觉得 it's shameful， 哦，是我的错。 Women always blame themselves， 我们就觉得哦，一定是我的错，我是女生，那肯定是我的问题。 No，It takes two to tango。 你们两个人是50%-50%的，这是第一。第二，很多的流产就是没有原因，是你自然界的一个优胜劣汰的过程，这是非常常见的。就像你撒骰子一样，你翻到哪个字母都是 random， 都是随机的，所以跟你自己做了什么，一般情况下一点关系都没有。所以真的不要 blame 你自己，那样的话只会让你有很多的愤怒和悲痛感埋在心里。这就是我自己一直以来的感受。我还要跟大家说，如果我们越来越多的人能站出来谈这件事情，那么这个社会所有的人就会更重视女性在经历生育困难或者在流产之后所需要的身心方面的帮助。这就是为什么我要坐下来跟 Zita 进行心理治疗。 Zita saved me from a really dark space。 她有一个 program， 她跟我说，怀孕不仅仅是身体的一件事情，它是身体、心灵和肠道3件事情。她这个 program 叫 HUG， stands for heart， your heart， 你的心灵， uterus，你的子宫，然后 G 是 gut， 你的肠道。大家如果感兴趣的话，可以去他的网站或者去他的 Instagram 去看一看。最后我想跟那些在生育道路上遇到困境的姐妹们，还有经历过流产的姐妹们说，你不是一个人，我理解你的痛苦，我理解你的感受，我也愿意当你的树洞。如果你有痛苦，你有话可以跟我说， I'm here for you。
Tracey, tell me about your fertility journey. I know a little.
So Zita, as you know, like all my life, I'm the kind of person that's, do you call it type A? Like I control everything.
Alpha.
And for me, it's always, I know that if I put efforts into something, then I'll succeed. And the more you put in, the more return you have.
Yeah.
But going through fertility journey was a whole different story. That's pretty much the first time in my life that I've been feeling out of control. Because as much as we know about fertility, there's still so much we don't know. So my journey started pretty much after I got married in 2017. We started trying for a baby. I thought it was going to be so easy because everybody in my family was super fertile. My grandmother had 6 children. My maternal grandmother had 7 children. Never thought it would be an issue. But it was months after month after month of no news. And then I just really started panicking to the point where I would get my period and start sobbing. That's pretty much 2018 and 2019. That's when I started seeking fertility treatment. I've done every test, every blood test. I've taken every hormone. I've taken everything that you can think of to induce ovulation, all of that. I've checked everything, my fallopian tubes, everything. Nothing is wrong. They said everything is good, everything is cool, like you're fine, just keep trying, but it's just not happening. It was such a hard and lonely journey because you just don't know what's going on and you feel so out of control. And finally, when I conceived Scarlett, my first pregnancy was marred in anxiety because that was almost a year and a half after we started trying. So a year and a half, you're finally pregnant, and after reading all the horrible stories about so many, 1,000 ways how this could really go wrong, I was so anxious. Every day I would think that there would be something wrong with my baby. Like you told me, a lot of times women just want to go to sleep.
Yeah, wake up and have a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the worst thing was, when I was 6 months pregnant, when I was just feeling a little bit better about being pregnant, the person I loved the most, my grandmother, passed away. So that pregnancy was marred in devastation. I knew that she lived a full life, but still, like that kind of pain that you carry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I lost my grandmother. That was double with the fact that I was pregnant. That was very, very hard for me. And luckily, I was so blessed to have Scarlett, and she was delivered healthy, and I had a very healthy delivery. Just right after I stopped breastfeeding, I accidentally got pregnant. I wasn't planning anything. Thrilled. I'm like, okay, the magic to fertility is actually just giving birth to one child. I thought all my life's problems would go away because everything else in my life I'm pretty happy with. And my family, my career, my friends, everything. This part, I was so struggling that I couldn't really talk to anyone about it. So happy. 7 weeks, when I was calculating I was about 7 weeks pregnant, I went in for the first scan. The doctor said, sorry, we don't see a heartbeat. And I don't think this is going to work. It's just a empty gestational sac.
And that's a shock, isn't it?
It was a huge shock. On top of that, I had so much work to do. I had to go for a photo shoot. I want my audience to know that. So the doctor said, I would recommend to terminate pregnancy, but just in case, let's wait for 2 weeks to do another scan. So during that time, you could just imagine the kind of anguish that I was in. I never talk about this miscarriage, by the way, because it was so early that I didn't tell anyone, so I kind of just buried this one deep in my heart and never told anyone. But my followers, they know that if you ever bought anything from my store, you get a picture of me in this pink outfit, very happily carrying that pink box and just smiling and wearing this very cute fascinator and taking photos. I actually took that photo carrying a dead baby inside me because I had to go into that photo shoot. I couldn't because everything was booked, and I was waiting for my blood test results and the second scan to confirm that this pregnancy wasn't viable, that it's not going to develop into a baby. I had to think of ways of getting rid of this gestational sac that's inside of me. That photo was taken with that thought in my mind. So when people think that I'm all happy and pretty and in that like glamorous, it was painful. It also happened at a time I was ready to go back to China. At a time there was quarantine time. So the doctor presented me with 3 options. I could either take something to try to get rid of the gestational sac and waiting for it to come out, or I could wait for it to naturally miscarry, or I could do an evacuation, DNC. Eventually I chose DNC. It was because I had to work, like I had a demanding schedule. So I went in to have a DNC, then I went back to China. And then I was in China for 7 months. Came back to Singapore, got pregnant right away. I was so thrilled. I thought, oh my God, I'm so fertile. Everything was so good. Finally, I've healed my issues and all of that. And when we went in and for the first scan and I saw that strong, strong heartbeat, I cried. I still look at that video we recorded it. So we walked in, the doctor was like, do you want to record this? I said yes, because it was so strong. You know, once you see the heartbeat, you think that's a done deal. Yeah. Like, unless something really wrong happens, week after week, we go back, strong heartbeat, nothing wrong, baby growing right on time, maybe a day or two ahead, so cute. Got our chromosomal test, prenatal test, everything was so good. And I was just so happy waiting for that baby to happen. Boom, again, a traffic accident happens.
Yeah, I know.
After that happened, I was reading about all these women sharing stories on the internet about midterm or even close to late term stillbirth. It is very different, Zita, than the first DNC I went through. Because for the DNC, you really just go to sleep. Yeah. I know it's sad that the baby was in there, but you go to sleep, then you wake up and it's over. This one is different, because the baby had to be induced.
Yeah.
So what they do, you know better than I do, because you were a midwife.
Yeah.
They put a pill in you to loosen your thorax and loosen your cervix every hour. So they put it in you, and then you start cramping. It's like you're in labor, you start contracting, and an hour later they check how much your cervix has dilated, and then they go again, check again. They push the pills in you until your cervix opens, and then you literally had to give birth to the baby.
It's like a labor.
It is labor.
Yeah.
And for my first labor, it was easy because I had epidural. This one, they wouldn't give you any epidural. They give me a shot of morphine on my legs. But that's it. That's the only thing they'll give me.
But Tracey, when you think you went from that shock, that accident, in the same day into a labour ward to be induced.
It's really hard for me to talk about. I'm not trying to cry because I want to stay cool and tell the story.
Yeah.
I never told the story because I don't know how to share this, but when you induce a baby, you feel the baby coming out of you.
Yes, you do.
It's like more real than giving birth, because when you're giving birth, like all the other people are just like, okay, fetal heartbeat, like, you know, push a little harder. This one is dead silence. People would tell you, push harder, but you know you're going through this, but you don't have a live baby to take home.
Yeah, it's a joyless experience.
Oh my God, it was horrible. You get a shot of morphine, but that does nothing. So you go through the full labor.
How many weeks were you?
I was 20 weeks.
Yeah, it's a long time. And, you know, I think as well, it's traumatic. What happened to you is traumatic. And I remember reaching out to you to say how sorry I was by message, and we spoke. And, you know, there are lots of stages of grief. And one of the first ones is denial, because you have to get up, get up from having your baby, go home, but leaving without anything. Did you manage to see the baby?
I didn't, because I was debating whether I should look at the baby, because at 20 weeks is a full baby.
Yes, yeah.
The doctor, I think in Chinese culture and Western culture,
it's very different. We encourage it.
Yeah. Usually in the UK, like, or the US, don't really encourage you to look at a baby. But my Chinese doctor recommended me not to, because he said if you look at it, it's that mental image will stay with you. But till today, I still think about whether I should have looked at my baby.
Yeah, I know. But like I was saying, that grief isn't linear. There's lots of ups and downs, and there's lots of stages to go through. And one of the first stages is like denial. And like I said, when I reached out to talk to you, your first words were, I'm going to be okay, I'm strong, it's going to be fine. And you really believe that. But I think that when something traumatic happens to you like this, you disconnect from so many things that are around you. And what women don't realise until you've gone through this, it's almost like you lose your confidence in your body's ability to carry a baby. You have fear about dealing with uncertainty the next time round. You're still pregnant, so your breasts, feel pregnant. They're producing milk. You're still feeling phantom kicks from the baby.
Yes, this is something that I've experienced for the first time, because the first miscarriage was much easier to deal with, not only from a physical part, but also because...
But you were only 5 weeks.
Yeah, yes. And then also I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And this second one, I had to deal with it publicly because I made the announcement. I chose a career to live on the internet. So like I benefited from, you know, having so many people that love me and really look up to me and want to be my friends.
Yeah.
And so many people who are interested in my life. I don't think my life is that particularly interesting, but I'm really grateful that people are taking some time to pay attention to what I do. But the downside is that you have to deal with everything publicly. So if you put this public information out there, it's out there, you have to explain it. I can't tell people, oh, happy pregnancy announcement, and not say anything when I don't have a baby to show for in a few months' time.
Yeah.
I had to go through this very publicly. That's so hard. In the beginning, when I first did the induction, I was like, why do I still feel kicks? That's freaky. It's so weird. I don't know. I'm sure that I'm not the only woman who's feeling this. I started Googling it. They told me it's called phantom kicks.
Yes.
Which means that the loss is so tragic. It's almost like PTSD. PTSD, where you are traumatized so badly that your mind still thinks that you're pregnant.
Yeah, and the whole thing about the body, it holds memories. Every cell holds a memory. So, trauma goes deep within the system. It is so difficult. There's a lot you have to come to terms with. But grief changes everything in your life. It changes your relationship with friends and people. It changes your relationship with yourself. It's almost like your innocence is gone now that you've gone through this. There's a fear of what's coming, moving forward.
Absolutely. Like you said, I was just in denial. I've been in denial since I've started this fertility journey. It's so crazy because everything else in my life has been pretty smooth sailing. Like it was easy. And this part was so hard, unexpectedly. And it's so lonely and emotional. I covered it up completely.
Yeah.
Because I don't tell, it started in maybe 2018 or 2019 when I just had this dark cloud hanging over my head that I couldn't get pregnant. Why couldn't I get pregnant? I've taken every hormone, every medicine in the world without going to do IVF back then. But it still affects how you carry yourself. I had so much anger.
Yeah.
Why couldn't I get pregnant? What is wrong with me? I always thought it was my fault. But they couldn't, modern medicine couldn't find a way to help me.
But with anger, it's another stage of grief. And women do blame themselves. They put themselves through it in terms of what they could have done differently. But again, with anger, if you don't release it externally, it builds up inside you. And it's like a raging fire that you can't control. And with grief and with anger, you hit out at those you love, you hit out at friends, families, colleagues, and sometimes it's irrational, you're triggered.
Totally. Even with my parents, I find myself snap at them.
Yeah.
But honestly, I even thought about getting divorced. I don't know why I think that. It's not like my husband did anything wrong. I have so much pent-up anger. Especially after the second loss. I thought I was done with this fertility journey. 2 babies, I wanted maybe 3, that'd be ideal, but 2, I'm okay, it's finished. And I just can't believe that happened to me. Why? And then I kept thinking, why did I go for that trip? Why did I let myself get hit? Why? And then how come some women can get in car accidents and their babies are okay?
Yeah.
And there I am, and then the bicycle just hit me. It wasn't that hard. But the doctors could never explain. There's so many things that they can't explain. Obviously, there are things we know that help with fertility. We know that taking supplements help. We know that exercising helps. We know that being generally, living a healthy lifestyle helps, and being young helps. But there's still so many things that we don't know.
And if you're, for me, if your headspace isn't right, it's hard to be motivated to do anything. And grief doesn't have a timeline. As I say, it changes day by day. And the only thing that's going to make you feel happy again is getting pregnant, having another baby.
Yes, that's literally, I think, the only way that's going to heal me. I've been in this dark space in so long now. Nobody knows because I don't want to tell anyone. Don't want to tell anyone that I'm struggling, that I was struggling to get pregnant. Don't want to tell anyone that I had a miscarriage. And this one, I don't want to tell anyone that I miscarried, but I had to. I was kind of put in this position to have to deal with it publicly. And it's hard to deal with things like this publicly. And I was just so angry. I find myself doing things that I don't even know why. Can't really tell anyone either, because to my family, I want to let them know. I don't want to get them worried. I want them to know that I'm strong, I'm okay. I don't want them to worry, so I don't talk to them. And then for my colleagues, I can't talk to them. I don't want to look weak or weird.
And a lot of people don't know what to say to you anyway.
They don't know. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
This is something, this pain, the loneliness, this emotional journey of this constantly failing at getting pregnant and then staying pregnant. It has become this dark space in my heart that I buried a lot of pain and anger and grief and frustration and devastation in. It just, when you add devastation, overwhelming sadness, devastation, incredible anger, and then and it just accumulates.
Yeah, it does.
And I had no channel, and I really don't want people to talk about this with me, because that's really the weakest spot. It's so painful that every time people brings it up, and it makes me really worry about the future too. And will I ever get pregnant again? If I do, will I stay pregnant? What if I had to induce another baby? Oh my God, like, it's just the thought, like, you know what, Zita, the worst about my experience was after they induced a baby, I had such bad luck that, because I was hit by the bicycle, so my placenta was not intact anymore. So they had to try to get the placenta out. They couldn't get it out. They used a catheter.
Yeah.
Couldn't get it out.
You had to go to theatre.
And the doctor, I had to do another evacuation. So just when you thought the ordeal was over, when your baby, they saw, I remember the nurse said very clearly, fetal expulsion happened at blah, 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 blah time. The doctor came in, tried to help me out to get a placenta out. Couldn't get out. He said, I am so sorry, Tracy, but I'm going to have to wheel you into the surgery room. We're going to have to do the surgery to evacuate your uterus because your placenta has shattered into pieces in your uterus, and we had to get it out. And I was just like, you must be kidding me. And obviously that was done while I was asleep. But when I woke up, I didn't have the energy to speak. I was so weak, and I remember Nate was next to me because it was during the corona time. He was the only one that's allowed to be with me. And I was I couldn't talk. I've always been a really healthy person. I eat healthy. I don't smoke ever. I drink very little. That was the first near-death experience. I thought I was going to die. And then after that, when I came home the next day, as soon as I stood up, I threw up. I think it's because
it was shock.
I don't even know what it was, but I kept throwing up. I couldn't even go to the bathroom on my own. Couldn't walk for a week. I was confined to my bed for a week. But this part inside of me was in such denial. I wanted to go back to work.
Yeah.
Because I had all these people waiting on me. I have my family wants to see me okay, so I'm like, you're okay. 2 weeks later, let's do this. You're gonna be fine. Let's go back online. Let's forget about this. You're such a strong woman that you will beat this. This will not keep you down. And looking back at it
was too soon.
And then I tell people that I'm okay. I'm not.
No.
I still dream about my baby. Sometimes I thought in my dreams, like, okay, all that bad things that happened, that was a dream. You're fine. Like, nothing. Your baby's still there. And then I was pregnant at the same time that my cousin got pregnant. She's about 8 weeks ahead of me. She just delivered a baby. I'm so happy for her. Like, don't get me wrong, but that was hard for me too.
It is, and I think there are so many hurdles to get through, like the due date, which is when?
It's August.
August, yes.
So she just delivered a baby in June.
Yeah.
Mine was in August. We're exactly like 8 weeks apart.
Yeah.
She just delivered her baby. I'm so happy for her. But it's hard for me to hear that because I see that and I think about the baby I lost.
Yeah.
5 years. This journey has been so dark and lonely and hard. I just think that people underestimate how fertility struggles really affects women's health physically and mentally.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Unless they've gone through the same experience, honestly. And
Yeah.
I know and this is something I learned, Zita. So many women have gone through this.
Yes.
I am not alone. And when I had a blighted ovum, yet we don't hear about women's mental and physical health, how to recover from this.
From a pregnancy loss? No, absolutely.
People
And
don't talk
you
about
can
it.
ask any woman, no matter what age, in her 60s, 70s, 80s, if she's had a loss, she always remembers that loss and always remembers that baby.
You know, Zita, especially in my culture, Chinese culture, miscarriages and, you know, pregnancy losses are a taboo subject. You don't really want to talk about it with people. And people don't always have access to counseling. And nobody even asked me whether I needed counseling. And I thought I didn't. But it stays with me. I'm still feeling, it went away, the phantom kicks for a little bit, has recently come back.
Yeah.
I think it's probably because my cousin delivered, that just brought back a lot of memory.
But that's what I was saying to you. You've disconnected from absolutely everything in order to protect yourself. And even, you know, like if I ask you to describe your heart today, what would you say?
It's in pieces. It's not only broken, it's shattered. I thought about divorcing my husband, doing all kinds of very self-destructive things.
Yeah.
Because I have so much anger I want to release. Why is this happening to me? People tell me, why don't you just say, you know, fuck it. Like, I'm done with this fertility journey. I have a daughter. Just forget it. It's so hard.
No, but the thing is, for women, they know how many children they want. They know if they want another baby. And you can't give up in your fertile years.
And the thing is, I just don't want to lose this battle. It almost feels like if I give up, I'm saying that I'm done, then what if I regret this decision in the future? And there's no turning back the clock.
No, there isn't any turning back the clock. And, you know, you need to sort of look back and think, I did everything I could.
Yeah.
As painful as it was at that time, I did everything I could to make this work for me.
I just think that people should talk about it more. And for the millions of women who've had losses, who are trying to get pregnant but constantly getting disappointed, who are going through IVF treatments, who've gone through rounds of IVF treatments, I know how they feel. They probably feel at times desperate, hopeless, in such dark space. And I want them to know that they're not alone. This is going to affect people mentally and physically. There's no questions about it. And it's okay to talk about it, because I don't, and it only accumulates. You put up such a happy front, you're like, people call you, you're like, yeah, I'm a tough girl, I'll be okay, I'm still fertile, you know, like I can only focus on things that I can control, like whatever happened is history, there's nothing I can do to bring back my dead baby, but I could have another baby. Sure, you're telling yourself all of that, but it does not change the fact that you lost a baby and you lost a child and you're so angry you're trying to blame someone.
Yeah.
Another thing is that a lot of times women don't know how to recover from this. They kind of just like, I'm dealing with it in a public eye. So it's a little bit different for me. For all the other women, they're just internalizing that pain. They're just hoping either having another baby or time will eventually heal you. I believe that time will eventually heal you. At some point, you're gonna still forever remember that baby you lost. For me, it's 2 pregnancy losses in a row. I had my uterus evacuated twice in 1 year. But my entire fertility journey pretty much started 4 years ago, is marred with sadness, with grandmother loss and then 2 miscarriages in a row. And I want them to know that there's a way, that there's things that you can do to help you out. And this is why we're sitting down here to do this, Zita. In one way that I want to find a channel to tell the world of my pain, because I think it's healthy to not internalize it for an expressive person like me. You know, another thing is that I hate this feeling of being out of control. I've been living out of a suitcase since I was a 12, 13-year-old girl. I left China and been living in New York, such a big city, away from my parents. It was hard for me because at that time, all you wanted was to be accepted and making friends. And it's hard when you have language barriers, when you have cultural barriers, and you're kind of trying to make friends, but you're moving all the time. It's hard for you to make friends. So I built up a very hard shell. I am naturally pretty tough, but I became overtly tough. Like I have this armor around myself, and I fight for what I believe in. I fight for what I want. I've always been that way. So whatever I want to do or achieve in my life, I put 200% of efforts and time and energy into it. But this time, it's so hard. It's been 5 years. Like, I just can't believe I'm still in this fertility process.
And there's no guarantees.
There's no guarantees. I mean, everything looks good, but you never know. Even with IVF treatments, with the best technology in the world, that helped me find the best technology in the world. But even that, nobody can guarantee you. The technology can only help you so much. IVF, I've seen women going through rounds and rounds and rounds of IVF, and the doctors don't really care. They just tell them, oh, you just, let's extract more eggs next time. Extract more eggs. It's always getting more eggs out of you.
No, but for me, it's all about preparation. That is prepare. You would never go out and buy your wedding dress on a Friday night to get married on Saturday. You would never do a marathon without preparation. So it is about preparing mind, body and spirit. And the difficult thing is with grief, it goes through lots of different phases, but every thought, every emotion that you're experiencing are strong emotions. So fear, anger, grief, loss causes a chemical cascade within your body. So it's like healing your heart, which is really important. And when your heart is shattered, like you say, it causes you to disconnect just to survive. So you disconnect from the rest of your body. How do you imagine it to be at the moment?
I think it's still holding on to a lot of grief and a lot of anger, and I need to learn to let that go and let it to be a happy and welcoming place, because if it's not, how am I gonna carry life again?
I think what's so hard for so many women I see going through this journey, life is on hold. I mean, you've got a busy career, but for a lot of people, life is on hold when they're trying for a baby and it's not happening. Doesn't dance, doesn't do art, doesn't do anything that's creative, because she's so focused on what's happening, and it just wears you down, it grinds you down. I see women like yourself that have gone through what you've gone through, or at different stages of their fertility journey, and when they come back to the clinic with a baby, I barely recognize them. They've got their makeup on, they don't look like the same person they were when they were going through.
Like, I don't look like the same person ever since my second loss. I'm still carry about extra 10 pounds on me from the pregnancy. It's weird. I thought, I gained some weight because I was 20 weeks and that's natural. And even after I lost my baby, the weight is still here. A lot of things I do, I can't even explain to myself why I do this.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm by myself. It's very different, Zita, when you're with people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're like, I'm so happy. This is so pretty. I'm like doing this and that. The minute everybody leaves, you're in that room, especially you're in a dark room, whoa, it all comes back to you.
Yeah. No, I understand. Do you believe you'll have a baby?
I do.
Good.
I do. Because I don't know whether it's good or not, but in Chinese we call it 不服输, meaning that I will not surrender. That has been my personality since I was a little girl. Maybe because I was, I had to start living on my own at a pretty young age. That's why I supported this charity for a long time that looks after, they call it the left behind children. In Chinese, it's called 留守儿童, meaning a lot of kids in rural China, their parents are working in big cities and they had to be raised by their grandparents. I was kind of like that, but it's different because I was abroad. I guess I don't want to draw the comparison because it's obviously different. These children's parents really needed to work for the families to survive, but it's the same type of concept that you are a lot of times separated from your family at a young age. I was 13 years old and I was living at school and with suitcases, living out of a suitcase. You had to get tough. You had to tell yourself you can do this. You are a strong person. Otherwise, the circumstances could really consume you. But eventually I assimilated and I thrived. And from that experience, I tell myself, I have to remain strong. I have to save myself. I have to do whatever it takes to achieve my objectives. And that's how I carried myself throughout my life. I don't know how to get rid of this anger.
Okay.
Some people will say, oh, are you trying to have a second baby because your husband wants a second baby? No, he doesn't. I do what I want. With or without a husband, I will have a second baby. That just what I want to do. I think women can do that these days. But of course, my husband has been supportive.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I'm so angry at him too.
So what are you doing every day? What have you been doing to nurture yourself? Have you had any massages or walks? Are you eating well? But because you're on your own, you're probably not.
No, sometimes I eat one meal a day.
Yeah.
Because I just don't feel like
You've lost
eating.
some weight?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Because I just don't feel like eating. Just not happy.
Yeah.
Not happy.
Yeah.
People always ask me, are you happy? I tell them, sure, I'm happy. But I'm not. Then when you say you're not happy, people are like, why aren't you happy? Don't you have enough? But it's a very complex emotion, and I want to be happy.
Yeah.
It's not something that I can control. My parents love me. Sometimes I think I have loving parents. I have a loving, supportive husband. I have a career. I have a team of people that love me. I'm receiving so much love. Why am I so angry? I know why. It's because I lost that baby on my fertility journey. Has been marred with sadness. And I'm so angry.
Not pushing yourself to do huge amounts of things. Also, understanding when you're vulnerable. That's your tricky trigger time. So, when vulnerability can be you're hungry or you're hangry or you have had a poor night's sleep, you feel triggered by something. It's like just not replying to a text or an email for 24 hours or 12 hours. Just understanding those windows of vulnerability that you experience. It could just be walking out onto the street and somebody looks at you the wrong way or says something to you.
Yes.
It sparks it. So
yeah, that's exactly how I feel. It feels really cold and lonely.
Yeah.
And dark.
Yeah.
And how can something cold, lonely, and dark be fertile?
Yeah, absolutely. And also your grandmother. The heart is about memory. Your grandmother's memory, your baby placed within your heart.
Immediately makes me feel better to think that baby went to my grandma. And she's going to take good care of him just like she did when I was a little girl. My mother went back to work when I was 6 months old.
Yeah.
So my grandmother raised me till I went abroad. She was my son, like, the son in my life.
Yeah.
And when she was gone, it was so dark, but I couldn't be sad. I couldn't go to her funeral because the local custom is that you can't attend her funeral if you're pregnant.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I never had closure for her passing either. She passed away in 2019, in October the 13th. I was heavily pregnant. They told me to go home the night before. On October the 12th, I knew that could be the last time.
Yeah.
She knew I was pregnant with a girl. A day before, she has always talked about how, like, she was in her 90s, right? This lady is the most hilarious, fire-spitting woman. She's vulgar because she's just, let's be honest, my grandmother wasn't educated.
Yeah.
She wasn't allowed to go to school, but she was the most courageous, intelligent, articulate woman I have ever met in my life. She was a fire-spitting woman. She does not back down from a valid argument. And she raised me that way. And I remember telling her that I was pregnant with a girl. She was like, how do you know? Because back during her time, she didn't know what non-invasive prenatal testing was. And I told her, Grandma, it's through DNA. It can't be wrong. And she was like, that means girl's so good. And I held her hand for the last time and I left. The next day she's gone and people didn't let me see her. Didn't see the funeral. Didn't get to. I said goodbye the day before, but it's not closure. I didn't go to her funeral.
And very often with grief, it brings up old memories, old things that have been unresolved. It's part of the grieving process. But Tracey, you are courageous. You are strong, and you'll get there.
Yeah, I'm a fire-spitting woman.
Yeah, you are a fire-spitting woman. Yeah,
I'm like her.
Yeah.
And I miss her so much.
Yeah.
I still can't go back to the apartment she lived in.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
So my mother's apartment is still there. I can't go back to it.
And again, it is with loss. It's that loss of life that changes you, your relationship with yourself, but also it's the lost potential. The potential of what would have been.
She had always told me that she would be completely happy, like full life, when she sees me like getting married and having children. She made it to my wedding. That was great. She was so healthy. The baby so close. I think I'm still holding that anger as well. It's literally like 4 months. Like she didn't make it. But now I think maybe, my second baby is with her now. I named him Chase. And Chase is with her now. Zita, I've only wanted girls in my life. Like, wow. When I learned that I was pregnant with a boy, I was like, I never even thought of being a boy mom. I don't know how to be a boy mom. No, I don't have a gender preference. Yeah. I'd be happy with whatever that I can get. Girl, boy, it doesn't matter.
But how are you going to be moving forward? I know it will be up and down for you, but what has this whole experience taught you?
I think it made me think about the fact that fertility, how much impact fertility could really have on a woman's life. When I was younger, never in a million years would I thought this would be an issue in my life at all. Like, I thought getting pregnant, having children, that would just be so natural, right? Especially now I'm nearing the end of my fertility years. I'm 38, like 10 years later, it's probably not possible at all anymore. You're moving towards the end part of it and you're getting older. You see this whole issue completely differently. And then you realize how many women have been neglected, how many women have been ignored for their struggles and their pain, and they were going through this horrible experiences on their own. So I want them to know that they're not alone. If you're watching this video and you've gone through the same thing and you're struggling with fertility, I want you to know that I feel you. I want you to believe that you are not defined by fertility either. You do whatever it takes. I get it. I'm the same way, but we're not defined by it.
I think what's hard though for a lot of women is, I always think that women are very intuitive, but when you're going through fertility struggles or baby loss, you lose your intuition.
Yep.
You become desperate. And again, for women, they like to talk about it, which is really important. It's their way of releasing. But sometimes in a relationship, a man doesn't know what to say. He's full of optimism and he wants to fix it, and sometimes he can't fix it. You need to weep, you need to cry. Crying is an emotional release.
I got very upset at my husband because he didn't shed a tear when we lost his baby. He didn't cry. He's sad, I think. Yeah. But he didn't react the way that I did, and I think I'm still upset about it. Like you said, he's so optimistic. It really upsets me.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm so sure that we're going to have another baby, just as I'm sure that a sun is going to rise tomorrow. I'm like, no, you're not sure. The sun is going to rise tomorrow. Like, you're not sure.
Yeah, but that's the difference between men and women. Women will talk about it a lot. Men will talk about it to begin with, but then they don't know what to do. They feel paralyzed by it. It's really, really hard.
Like you said, they have this blind optimism. I mean, if Dr. Simone told me I'm sure that you're going to have the baby, just as I'm sure the sun's going to rise tomorrow, then I'll feel so much better.
But nobody can tell you can get pregnant, and nobody can tell you can't get pregnant.
Yes,
yeah,
that's true. That's so true, Zita. I've seen, just to give some women hope there, I've seen desperate stories.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I think I'm lucky that I still have legs. But
yeah.
Like you said, nobody can guarantee that you will get pregnant. Nobody can guarantee that you won't.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so I want this to be a message of self-rescue.
Yeah.
Salvation.
Yeah. Being kind to yourself, getting the support that you
need and deserve.
Yeah.
And a message of hope.
Yeah, yeah.